Hi, I'm Dr. Barbara Becker Holstein, and I'm back here with the Enchanted Self in a kind of Enchanted Self studio. And tonight we're going to talk about a serious subject. We're going to talk about kids and their anxieties and some of the things that create the anxiety and some of the maybe things we can do to help with the anxiety. And we're going to see where it leads. Let me just back up and say that I'm what I call a positive psychologist because my life work is geared to helping people recognize their talents, their strengths, and their potentials. And of course, people have problems and we have to handle the problems. But recognizing people's strengths is really, really important. Okay, quiet on the set. We're very at ease here. And you'll find that things make crazy noises and everything. Okay. So here we go.
Got it.
Yeah. So we have, anyway, positive psychologist into people's talents, strengths, and I've developed 2 books for girls that are important to remind you about because they are the basis of all the film work that I've been doing. So this is The Truth Diary of a Gutsy Tween and Secrets Diary of a Gutsy Teen. And then for those of us that are well over 21, this is a very short, easy book that I wrote, 7 Gateways to Happiness, Freeing Your Enchanted Self. And it gives you the 7 steps that you have to bear in mind. You can pick any one of them to start. Eventually, you'll probably see you've done all 7. Because to be truly happy and with some joy and purpose in life, we have to have a sense of who we are, where we're going, and how to fight off depression, and et cetera, which is for another night. But I wanted to just mention the books. So we've been working on a film. This is the 3rd year that Megan Brown, Megan Brown, that you'll be meeting in a minute, has basically been what I call the star, even if that's an old-fashioned word, because she has done selfies on her own time under my direction, but not my supervision, if I could put it that way, at the moment, in her home that have rounded out and really made each of the movies. So we're just working now on the next installment, and just on Sunday we did a lot of the filming that involves a crew, and we will be showing you a very short excerpt from the current film. The current film, the working title is The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction. And I think actually some of the anxiety factors for kids in today's world, it's almost that way, or it is that way, that we've created a truth that is really stranger than fiction. Now I'm going to let each of the 4 guests, there are 2 girls, as I said, one of them is Megan, from the film, and, well, let them introduce themselves, and then 2 moms, one is in the film and one is not, but she is a great contributor helping us in many ways. So let me just see. Let's start with Cris and we'll go around.
Sure. My name is Cris Brown. I'm Meg's mom, and I've had the pleasure of playing her mom in the last 2 films, and I get to be her mom in real life. So.
Hi, I'm Megan Alice Jones Brown. The Jones is a new nickname I've acquired over the past 15 minutes. I play the girl in all 3 of these films, and I just recently finished filming on Sunday. I finished filming Sunday for a lot of the scenes that are going to be in the movie, and I was also on set with my co-star, Elena.
Hi, yep. I'm Elena Cuesta. I played the nerd girl, Melissa. I'm a little pushed around by the bully, who's played by Rachel, but Megan, the girl, still sticks by me and supports me, even though I'm kind of like the outcast.
And hi, I'm Theresa Cuesta. I am Elena's mom. I'm proud to be here to support her through her journey. I'm grateful to Dr. Holstein here to have her along this journey and meeting wonderful people across from me.
All right, so we have quite a crew here. And then we have Christian behind us, or in front of me, doing all the mechanical work.
Hello, everybody. I'm
So-
not important. I don't get my
So let me just pose the question. Do you think anxiety is relevant for today's kids, tweens, and teens? Is it a relevant issue?
Well, I definitely think so, as someone who suffers from anxiety, and who is friends with a lot of people who suffer from anxiety. And it can really be like from school pressure or just from friends and stuff like that, or it can just be like an internalized anxiety that you kind of carry around with you. And I think that it's really important that it's addressed, especially in today's climate. I think it's good for it to be like normalized among kids our age and stuff like that, so that people can work harder to find ways to like cope with it and help each other out through it. Because usually people that have anxiety are really afraid to talk about it because they don't want to be a bother on anybody, or they're afraid that that people just aren't going to get it and they're just going to have to suffer by themselves, but that is really not the case most of the time.
Yeah, totally. Anxiety, I know, can have like a ton of different causes, and people can have anxiety about so many different things. And I do have a lot of friends also with anxiety, and of course I help them cope with it, and they have their own ways to cope. And yeah, I think it's really important for it to be recognized because it's something big in our generation, I feel like.
We'll come back to both of you and just want to go round table for a minute.
Yeah, I always wonder if it seems more prevalent because we're talking about it more as a community, or if it's always kind of been there and, brewing, but not surface, not socially acceptable. So that's another thing. I don't know how much community has changed versus how much we have actually changed in anxiety over the years.
Okay, interesting posed question.
I'm hoping that it's actually a good sign that we're improving healthcare. We're getting people more treatment who need it. I think that, growing up, it was something that maybe people self-medicated, whether it was with alcohol or drugs. And now maybe, with psychotherapy and with controlled medications, we're getting it under control. And like Megan said, it's better to talk about it and people heal. It was something I think maybe we were afraid to talk about growing up. It was just something we were forced to deal with.
More taboo.
But hopefully with an improvement in healthcare, getting more people coverage, getting people the help they need, it can be addressed, and it can be something we see, reduced with proper treatment.
So treatment is one level. Let's come back to that. What about at the more homey level of, things that help? Would either of you, or as kids or your parents, be willing to share some of the remedies that seem to help a little bit, aside from treatment, sort of homegrown remedies?
I think just talking about it with friends or family that you trust with it, or I know a lot of people have therapists, they talk to their therapist. In my school, something that's funny is that everyone's been talking about like meditation and stuff, because in gym class we started like a yoga Zumba thing, and we do meditation at the end. And I know that helps with a lot of people, and a lot of people have kind of just taken that up. And one of our science teachers, she was my biology teacher actually, she encourages meditation. Like, we did meditation in class at like the end of almost every class for my freshman year for bio. She's like, and every time before we took a test, we did like a class meditation. It was actually really nice, and it actually helped relieve a lot of stress.
That's good. That's good.
Mm-hmm. I think that has to do with the mindfulness movement too, where you're living in the moment and aware of your current surroundings and finding pleasure in the immediacy of the moment and being aware. It all ties together, I think, with that meditation aspect.
I think also, as parents, we try to fix it. If we see that there's something wrong, we want to fix it. We don't ever want to see our children hurting, but I think I'm trying to learn that, sometimes you do need to just step back, let them heal, let them have a moment, whether it's doing something completely different than homework or something social, and maybe it's not the right time or it's not the priority, but for that moment for them, maybe that just needs to be the priority.
Yes.
And to just step back.
Yes.
And I think that as moms of teens, and it's hard for us to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we don't get to choose because they're of an age where they really make a lot of their own decisions. So no matter how much we want to push in, sometimes you're right, stepping back is the right way to go.
It's just so opposite of what we're taught as a parent. So it's a daily, hourly reminder, that we aren't there for every decision for them.
I think like something that I like to do when I start to like get anxious or like maybe I'll have like a panic attack or something. My friends and I came up with like this one thing. We like pretended, we like called it a game jokingly, but the game was called Lay on the Floor for 30 minutes and just breathe. And like as comforting as it was funny. And I actually have started doing that, and it's been like really nice. And I think I don't know why like I didn't just do it before, but it really just kind of flushes all the bad away for a little bit at least. If I'm like just if I'm not quite at like the like really anxious part, it just really helps it like to stop it before it becomes a thing. So.
And I found that my anxiety I've had journaling, and not necessarily everything I've done that day, but just making a few notes, 3 or 4 positive notes a day, and I go back and look at my week, and it actually makes a really big difference in my outlook.
Ah, yes, now you're into kind of some of the positive psychology suggestions around handling anxiety. Yeah. I don't remember when I was a teen, I think I was so anxious that I wasn't even aware of it. Mm-hmm. I think I lived in a certain realm that was so standard for me that I had to get into a good college and I had to get my work done. And I was on that plane. I wasn't even aware that I was perhaps burning out some of my creativity, some of my hopefulness, because anxiety really interferes with a really productive, full life. It gets in the way. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't, it might benefit one night of study, keep you up till 4 a.m., but it really isn't making you a full person.
And it might keep you up to study, but ultimately, like, while you were studying it, you still couldn't, like, get rid of that kind of terrible feeling, and that's no way to, like, learn about something, too.
The thing that I remember that helped me the most in junior and high school years that I think I got from my mother was laughing hysterically. My mother was able to really have fun. And some of the fun was really silly. She wasn't a very interested she wasn't a house cleaner, housewife. She was teaching school. She was very, very busy. And the last thing she wanted to do, I'm just telling you this because it really stands in my mind as how much fun we had. She hated to clean the refrigerator. Now, my father was a stickler. He was quite precise. All his clothing was lined up and, his drawers were all perfect. And they probably had some fights behind my back, and he would sort of edge her on, when you're going to clean the refrigerator. By the way, in those days, most products were not even marked for the date of expiration. So she would wait till my father was definitely out of the house, and then she'd call me and she'd say, "We're going to clean the refrigerator, get all the brown paper bags." And we'd take 2 bridge chairs, and open the refrigerator, and she'd start pulling things out, and she'd say, "Oh, I think these pickles are only about 6 years old. Should we keep them?" And then she'd smell something. She'd say, "Oh, get rid of that. And we would be laughing so hysterically, and she'd say, hurry up. We had to get the brown paper bags. I'm moving too much.
Oh, no, you're good.
Oh, okay. we had to get the brown paper bags into the garbage outside so my father would have no trail. But like, I think just this type of laughter, and then I had some girlfriends where we were doing the same thing. It helps. It helps. But I think today it's more defined, like you're saying, Cris. We understand anxiety, kids talk about it, and there's a whole health movement, a mental health movement, and people go for help. So going to people coming for help, there's so many techniques. And sometimes I find with kids, it's really just being sort of calmed down and soothed a little bit. You know, that you're going to make it. You don't have to be at that pitch you thought you had to be at.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where meditation or positive cognitive self-thinking, all these things can really be helpful. But in today's world, aren't we talking about triggers that may be more dramatic than what we had to experience?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that, you touch on something in the movie that, for sure these kids, I don't know if anyone saw it, but there was a drill done at a school not too long ago, and I think it was a 7-year-old girl actually wrote a message on her arm to her mom and dad, because I guess at that age they don't know yet what's a drill, even if they're told.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was pretty eye-opening to see that a 7-year-old had the thought to put a message on her parents in case
She didn't make it.
Yeah, yeah. So I think these drills are definitely setting a whole nother level of anxiety. I don't know how you guys feel. I know when we were in school, we really just had fire drills. That was it. We didn't have these lockdowns and bomb threats. So I couldn't imagine what it's like to go to school with, that extra weight.
And the worst thing with a fire drill was during the winter because you might be cold for 2 minutes.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
There's tremendous anxiety to the point where some kids will not go to school when there's going to be a drill.
Absolutely. And I remember I work in schools. I've worked in many schools over the years. And when this first came out, when the school shootings really started, they didn't know what to call it. They were going to call it active shooter, active armed person. Like, they didn't even know what to call it. And they were practicing these in the elementary school. And I can tell you, those kids were terrified by those terms. It was very hard to figure out what to call it. And I think it's gotten better addressed, as you'll see in the clip, on how to tell students what's going on without saying too much.
So let's tell our audience a little bit about this clip. As I said, we were just filming on Sunday. This is what we call a rough draft. It's not balanced yet in certain ways for the audio or the amount of time that appears to pass. But and I should also mention that Rich Hall, who was the photographer, used his smartphone 8. So he was not using the two cameras, that there were two other professional people there, camera people, using the big cameras. But I think it's pretty amazing what can be achieved with the smartphones. So we're going to see the clip, and I think it points out some of the reasons why there's so much anxiety, whether it's, in a drill or whether it's real.
So, where are you getting your hair cut and color these days?
Salon L, downtown.
How much do they charge?
I don't know. My mom paid.
Okay, Miss Privilege. Oh, this color looks so good
How was
on
that
me.
chemistry test for you?
It was okay. Stoichiometry's still hard.
Yeah, It's the worst. Did you hear that? Was that gunshots?
I don't know.
This is Principal Howard. This is an emergency. Initiate lockdown procedures. I repeat, this is Principal Howard. This is an emergency. Initiate lockdown procedure. This is not a test.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do?
Quiet, you have to listen.
We're gonna die. We're gonna die. Snow. We're gonna die.
Get in there.
Oh my god, this can't be happening. This can't be happening. Oh my god. Oh my god. How is this happening?
It'll be okay as long as we keep quiet.
No, I can't.
Taft is all clear. I repeat, Taft is all clear. This is Secretary Higgins. Taft is all clear. I repeat, Taft is all clear.
Thank God.
Oh my god.
We're still alive.
Yeah.
That was insane.
I hope Brian's okay. Oh my god.
Thank you.
But
Well, I remember watching it, and I just felt kind of floored at how intense it was just for those few moments, and the interaction between the girls, how it changed a lot in those few minutes that they were filming because of what was going on, because of anxiety and fear and shyness. It was a very interesting interaction and change of mood to watch.
yes.
You guys can keep going. It's just they're after me.
Okay. So,
I think they did a really good job of, showing what that's like in that moment. I shared this with Barbara, just try to keep this short, but I was a freshman in my high school, and I had a classmate come in first period in the morning with a shotgun, and he had 22 of us in the room for about 40 minutes, and I love how between the three of you did such a good job of, your brain doesn't catch up with what's happening. And you really show that in the movie. You hear the gunshots, but because they're in such a place that they don't belong, you don't know if that's real. You don't know if what you heard is exactly what you just heard. And that was very true to what happened in the classroom. It takes your brain quite a few minutes to catch up with what's actually happening in front of you. I am glad to be able to say that no one was injured. It was just someone who had some issues, and our vice principal was able to intervene very quickly. But we had students in the room, everyone was going through different emotions. We had girls that were crying. We had one boy who managed to run out when he wasn't looking. I don't even think to this day he knows that he had run out of the room. Some kids were you could see the fear on their face. Some were very relaxed. So everyone was kind of going through and reacting to it differently. But that's a pretty good indication, I think, of what your body just naturally does when you're in any of those stressful situations.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a shame that is exactly what, I don't know, you had some statistics.
Yes.
And they're horrifying.
Yeah. I turned off my phone, but I think it's close to 1,200 kids have died by gunshot since the Florida massacre of last year. Now, in all different circumstances, but that shouldn't be happening in our culture for children.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And
we were saying how mental health is getting better, but I still think it has a long way to go, because whenever the most recent school shooting was, I know my son commented, he said if these kids got help earlier and, they were listened to carefully and these things could be caught even earlier, that he thinks these kind of school shootings might just dissipate if there was early enough intervention.
I think that that's true, and I think at the other end of the scale, if guns were as difficult to get as, say, in England, that would make a difference too. You know, a society that makes something very difficult, there'll still be ways. I mean, it's always going to be ways.
Black market.
But when you cut down the legal market or the semi-legal market, many people won't bother, or it's just too convoluted, or they're afraid they'll be picked up for some other minor charge that they have out there or something, so they're not going to risk it. So, and I'm proud of New Jersey because it is one of the 3 tightest states on gun control in the country. It's not perfect, but...
Were you in New Jersey in high school, Cris, when that happened?
Yeah, this was in 1990 it happened, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was here.
Whatever happened to the kid, do you know?
I don't know much. You know, the sad thing is, I mean, he is a genius, beautiful piano player. I believe he's teaching music at a very well-known university. And I think, you know, I honestly don't know what the outcome was. But, you know, the school definitely was kind of shook for a little while. And I think when the anniversary of Parkland came up again last week, one of the principal from the high school, there was an article in the paper, and he had been a teacher at that time in one of the other schools. And, you know, they kind of went back and revisited that event, so... Yeah,
it doesn't sound like he went to prison or anything.
I don't know. I have to be honest. I really don't know what the outcome was. But he was not somebody that you would think. I think, right? You hear that a lot. Sometimes you hear, you know, yes, they weren't surprised, but then a lot of times I think you hear the kids say, "That's not who we would have thought would have done that," which means we have no idea who is capable of it.
Definitely. It goes into judging and your peers and other things too. Like, you might think the shy, quiet person who's a little stranger than everyone else might be the one who has that kind of propensity to commit violence or to act on those feelings where other people have better ways of coping. You just don't know.
No, you don't know. You really don't.
But I thought the scene was miraculous in the way it portrays what's going on today, in today's schools with these young people.
And it's very interesting because the subplot is that Melissa, played by Elena, was extremely shy, hardly knew even how to say hello to friends that come from a very, living with her grandparents, almost on a kind of farm, and being a very quiet child. And you, the character, develops into somebody who can really handle a terrible situation. And Rachel Gessner is not here tonight, but she'll come in by phone, FaceTime phone, maybe next time. She plays the bully. And in the last movie, the last film, she's just an awful bully. And does it for all sorts of reasons, like most bullies. She's doing it because she's compensating for some jealousy and feeling she doesn't have much. Like when she asks you, where do you get your hair done? Oh, your mother pays, She's jealous, envious. And she just crumbles and you save her,
But she doesn't like that for a minute at the end.
No,
she's not quite sure that she was like, wow, I'm really connecting with this person that I've looked down upon for so long. And they helped me. There's that.
Well, a lot of times people help each other in an emergency, like in the neighborhood, say when even something like Sandy, there was no power, families would get together and share food and stuff. And when it's over, they go back. But still, it's good. I mean, it's better. I think it leaves an impression of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a relationship, can come out of something good. Sometimes a relationship comes out of going through something bad together.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see if the bully's relationship with Melissa changes after something like that, because that can be very humbling, can make you feel very vulnerable. Rachel's character definitely was not one who, suffered any kind of vulnerability up to this point. So I'm curious to see what happens with her character.
We're going to have to wait till next year on that.
Or is it like the Breakfast Club when she
Yes.
says, "Is it going to go back?" And Molly Ringwald says, "Yeah, it's going to go right back the way it was. I'm not going to talk to any of you." And I don't know if that rings true for the girls here in the room with us.
Well, I don't think they know yet till we develop the characters more. May not be clear.
But I think that it was definitely enough of an event that like they can't look at each other the same way anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that just might be enough.
Yeah. So I also, this is just a sideline, but I often find with my clients, and I think it happened to me a bit in high school, anxiety was on a spectrum with mild depressiveness. I'd like to bring that up to see if you concur, that I don't know whether that's because it wears you down, but I see you nodding, so maybe you have a response.
Yeah, I think it ties a lot in with being too afraid to seek help or feeling like too much of a burden to seek help, especially if you have anxiety, like you really don't want to reach out because you don't want to bother anybody. But that kind of leads to like folding in on yourself a little bit.
I was going to say, is that a fear of reaching out because you realize you're anxious, or because you don't even know why you're feeling this way?
Well, in my experience, I know, but like sometimes I just be like, I don't really want to alarm anyone, so I'm just not going to say anything. Yeah.
So you push through it.
Yeah.
And I think that dealing with mild to moderate depression, can be really, really helped with some good treatment. And actually, most people do not need an antidepressant. People think they may, and they get frightened or want it. Sometimes they want it. But really, the antidepressants do best if you have a severe depression, which nobody wants. But the mild to moderate, just feeling safe, feeling you are trying some new things, feeling that you are seen in a positive light by people helping you, having enough good food, having enough exercise, having enough sleep, all the normal things. And if the mild depression is being triggered by something, which certainly for me it was a breakup with a boy in 9th grade, then socializing and moving back into circles of friends and activities is critical.
Mm-hmm.
Just withdrawing will do nothing because it's not going to bring back a particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it keeps you moving, because sometimes if you're just sad or depressed about something, if you just sit there and don't do anything, you're just like not really well, you might be moping, but you're just sitting there and not doing anything with it. So the feeling just sits there with you.
Yeah.
But if you go out and do something, or go out with your friends or do something, then it'll go away because you're actually doing something else and you're being productive.
Is that why you're busy and not home every night till 8 o'clock after school, and every chorus and band and anything you could do?
Well, it's good to experience things while the energy is there. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're not going into severe fatigue, which also kids can do and not recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
Get themselves too tired.
I think school pressure is very different today, too. Yes, you do. But you stay up because you're having fun still, I think. What did I just say?
School pressure is different today.
I think it's different today because when I grew up, right, my experience, and I hope I try not to pass it on. We'll all have passed something on we won't want to, right? Is just it was expected. I was expected I would do well in whatever I did, and it was just kind of there. It was I just rode that path. It was expected of me, and I think that's a little harder for kids today because of standardized testing's in the way. there's a whole complicated thing with teachers being great on how well their students do. So are the students getting those, if they're not getting those needs met, those basic needs, how can they get it in a school that's so crammed with information and testing and studies? I think it's very hard on a kid.
I really think that people need a lot of soothing. And when we shortchange people, we really do them in, depending on the person. There's no way a person can feel comfortable under tremendous stress. And many societies have reduced the stress by things we don't do in our society. Like when my husband and I were fortunate enough to go to Cuba for a week, people don't have a lot of money, but they live mostly in apartment complexes where every apartment complex has a civic center that belongs to those people. And not only would they have art shows and things like that, but places where people would bring their supper and eat. And, it was like family style. Well, that reduces a lot of the pressure. That is soothing. And we, as a society, I think, have moved too far away from understanding what soothing is all about.
Yeah.
And the teachers are caught in a vicious cycle. To soothe a kid might mean modifying a test, giving him some extra days, thinking of a creative project. Yes, if he's classified, maybe you have room to do that. But it could just be an ordinary kid that's having a rough couple of weeks, and the teacher doesn't want the principal down on her back. You shaded this for this kid. So it's tough. By the way, there's this whole new movement, and now you have to help me because I don't know the letters. But one of my clients, he knew right away. He's been watching the stuff on YouTube. It's this soothing movement.
Molly listens to it every night.
ASMR?
Yeah. Say the letters. Let's say the letters again.
ASMR.
ASMR. Now, tell us what the people look like who do the ASMR.
Oh, I don't actually listen to them myself.
Yeah. Have you seen them?
I've seen a few.
Aren't they extremely beautiful?
They're usually like attractive, like younger women. Like that's usually who's doing it. Yeah.
It's a little bit stylized toward, if you want to have a beautiful woman in your life, kind of, fantasy. You can watch her and she's going to soothe you. But the notion of some of the things they're doing, like just tinkling different noises and suggesting ways you can touch your skin and stuff.
And eating pickles. There's a woman who has a whole channel on it where she's crunching pickles, and that's very soothing. And Bob Ross, the way he spoke and created at the same time, that's
probably if it counts as ASMR, that's probably the only ASMR I've been dedicated to watching. I love Bob Ross.
So, again, awesome. Why is it so popular? Because people do need that soothing. In another generation, you might have been on your porch in your rocking chair, no matter what your age, and your mom is inside, when your family's around, and you're going back and forth on the chair for 40 minutes, and you feel good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that that ASMR is a mix between those feelings, but it's still on a screen right in front of you, and that's a lot of people are programmed to have that screen in front of you, so it brings that experience right into their hands. And I
don't necessarily think it's like just the screen. I think it's more of like a I think like the ASMR movement is kind of less about like just having easy access to nice noises and more about like kind of being lonely and like having someone that you can just have to like make you feel better.
Yeah.
And like a healthy and like non like it's like no destructive like things there. It's
and
just
no judgment but we're so commitment. And this is where the society, we're so needy of all these things. I'm not criticizing. Whatever we need, we'll have to take where we can take it. You know, we're not going to be able to live in a community of 4 generations with a picnic lunch necessarily, you know. Just can't, a lot of us live in ways that aren't going to work like the old days.
I think that exists. It's just existing in ways we're not used to. Maybe you guys can talk a little bit about, you know, Discord, which is really kind of your social community. It's just on a different platform, and that seems to be where kids are socializing and creating and sharing. It's just, we grew up with it being right there in front of you, and I think for you guys, it's incorporating technology a little bit more into it.
Yeah, in that sense, I think that that's an example where technology connects more than, like, draws people away from each other. I've met, like, a few really good friends over Discord, and we'll sit and we'll
What
talk.
does that mean?
It's like a computer. It's like either a computer application or an application you have on your phone, and it's text chat and voice chat. So you can, like, just join, like, voice rooms, and you can just, like, talk. And, like, there's no video or anything. You can do a call with video, but it's just, like, audio, and then you can, like, type
with
too.
random kids each time, or are you with?
Oh, no, well, you have to, like, intentionally make.
I see.
Yeah. Like, you have to have intentions to have and, like, maintain this server. So.
Very
Like a group
interesting.
chat.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
group chats. Okay.
Wow. So we're going to draw to a close. What do you think is one sort of pearl of wisdom around anxiety you could take away from tonight, or maybe tell others?
I think if I was going to say anything to anybody, it would be that this anxiety attack isn't going to kill you. It's not, like, this isn't as far as you can go. There's way more after this. There's way more better things than just, like, having to sit in this terrible, awful moment. Because it is a terrible, awful moment that no one should have to be put through. But exactly that, you're being put through it. You're not just stopping there. So, like, there's an end. in sight.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always going to be an end to the way that you're feeling, and you can move past it, and there are ways to cope and improve. There are a lot of great things you can do to find more joy in things that you're doing. And just know that the feeling you have just isn't permanent. It's going to go away, and you're going to find a lot of great things afterwards, and you can look forward to those things.
And maybe for another talk, but there is a lot of kids who were bullied relentlessly. Elena wrote one of her college applications about that, and it's hard to shake, and causes a lot of anxiety in
that's
kids
all-
too.
yes.
So we're talking about, we have our bully in the video.
Yes, we should do.
Yeah, how does that affect the other people around them, and over time? It's a tough situation. Like, if she's going to befriend you after this or not.
And I think Meg touched on it earlier. You can't be afraid to get help.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's nothing wrong with sitting and talking something out. Sitting in front of you, you know, my mom died when she was young. You sit with someone, they help you kind of take it out of your head, put it on the table, put it back in a better way. It's healthy. It's actually something that should be a part of just our regular health checks.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think we'll move forward better together as a society if we can make that, you know, a part of the discussion.
And I don't want to get heavily political because that's not my role, but I do think as the adults, we still have to maintain rigor to make our society as safe as possible. You know, without whatever that means, however each adult interprets that. And when you become of age to vote and have places where you can be influential, I think you have to do that also. We can't just ever let it go, because a society keeps creating itself and evolving, and it has to be taken care of. So,
And teaching kindness from a young age.
Yes.
The kindness, the sharing, to try to prevent the bully from getting as far as the bully in the video with you guys.
Yeah,
To prevent that
yeah.
some way, to instill the kindness and sharing attributes that we want our children to have.
and sometimes it just starts with being kind ourselves.
Yes.
You know?
The examples.
Yes, and praising our kids when they're 3 years old and they say, I want to bring that cookie to the neighbor, Mommy. You say, yeah, go. And you praise the kid and call Grandma and, you know, do things that make it work. So this is the end of another Enchanted Self hour together, and I want to thank all of you for being my guests. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
it was great, and I'll be back in a month or so.
Now I'm going to hug my daughter when
Yes.
this is over very close.
And I give a hug to all of you. You're very special in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
you.
Thanks.
Yeah.